graders, Spencer and Alexis, and a first grader, Holden. And Robin came and spoke at our preschool about a year and a half ago. And I went home and was telling Rick about her, and he bought her book and was like, wow, like she's in LA. Can we talk? Like, can we actually meet this person? So for the last year and a half, Rick and I check in with Robin every now and then, and she's given us really valuable insight for our family. And I think that you will all find her really interesting. Robin is an MD. She can give her background, but she went to medical school and was, if I got this right, Robin was going to be a pediatrician and loved learning so much about the brain. And she does a lot of neuroscience study at UCLA. Rick and I talk with her, she brings that in. So, she knows not just like the day-to-day of raising your kids, but actually the science behind what's going on in their brains and your brains. And she's extremely helpful and interesting and smart and funny. So I think you'll all enjoy it.
Beautiful intro, Lisa. Thank you. You walked right into the brain stuff. I'm so glad you hit on that. That's actually in this talk today. So
I'm good
for that. And a mindful mother like Lisa is, my dream, because that's really the goal, is just to be a mindful parent. She and her husband are incredibly mindful and tweaking their parenting. It's a lifetime job, or we tweak as we go. So hopefully we'll get some tips. So I wrote Permission to Parent in 2014 because I saw this parenting trend that in my age, children were seen and not heard, and go to your room because I said so. And then the pendulum went all the way the other way to, you don't feel like going to bed. Let's stay up. Let me sit with you for 17 hours in your bed and tap dance until you go to sleep. And let me do a little show. And, you don't like dinner. Let me make a different dinner. So we went from one extreme to the other. So I wanted to write a book about what's the graceful middle, where you honor a child's feelings, you respect them, you see them, you feel them, you know them, and also you hold a boundary and a limit, because setting a limit is a form of love. Oops, my slide is not moving. Oh, here we go. Let me try this. There we go. So I often ask moms of this generation, if you got on a plane and saw a 4-year-old pilot in the cockpit, how safe would you feel? You, not your kids, flying the plane. So this hierarchy of you're the parent, they're the child, this generation is like, they're my little buddy, trust me. I remember the first time my kid became my buddy when he was way out of college and we were having dinner in New York, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person's actually like a buddy now. It's the hierarchy tends to move, but at your stage, that kind of safe leader at the helm, I'm the parent, you're the child, creates safety for a child. Oh, by the way, you can see in that picture, the little cockpit, the little girl in the cockpit, the parents are not so happy that she's flying the plane. It's going down. Essentially, the plane is going down. This is the other trend that is so current. I just want my kid to be happy. If I hear that one more time, I will explode, because actually the way you make your kids happy is by teaching them to tolerate being unhappy. And we're going to talk about this in this pandemic, to parent through disappointment, to parent through uncertainty. This is like gold. This is parenting gold that I have not seen in this last decade. So this is Your Highness on the throne. What can I do to please you? Do you want some popcorn? Do you need a new puppy? Can I get you a new toy? It's that we've seen enough of this in that generation. Then here's the other trend. Mom and dad, also known as the Secret Service, right? Do you need help? Let me not let go of the back of the bike. You'll never fall. I'll never let go. In order to learn how to ride a bike, you got to let go of the back and they got to fall. So this hovering message that we've had, or the snowplow or the helicopter, basically gives a message, you can't handle it. I'm invaluable. You need me. But self-esteem has the word self in it. Right? This is self-agency, self-efficacy, riding your own bike. I do it myself, all of that. So the more you can let your kids do for themselves. My mantra is never do for a child what they can do for themselves. Okay, so back to the brain. Elisa got me right into my wheelhouse. I'm a little bit of a geek in neuroscience. So when you fall in love, your brain, so romantic love, when you fall in love with a partner, your brain actually changes structure. I think this is so, your brain on drugs, this is your brain on love. We could use in this 2020 a lot of brains on love. This is what a brain looks like on love. When you fall in love with your child, the structure of your brain actually changes, which is just kind of mind-blowing if you think about that. But today, what I really want to talk about is the structure when you are in a dyad with your child and loving and connecting and looking at them, the structure of their brain changes. So not to add any pressure to your job, but parents are brain sculptors. You actually sculpt neural pathways in the brain. So you want to go for this internalized loving bond. You're not the only one with issues. I was severely adored as a child. Nobody shows up to my office and that's their chief complaint. So people say, can you spoil them by love? No, you cannot spoil somebody by giving them love and making them feel seen and understood. By giving them stuff and no limits, yes, we can spoil them that way, but not this way. We do not write the story of childhood with a dry erase board. We write with a permanent Sharpie. And that's, you see a Hall of Fame coach who I interviewed for my book. She's spot on. These are neural pathways that get engraved. So childhood is engraved in our hearts, but it's also engraved in our brains. Why is it so hard to forget our own childhood, right? Or do reflexive things, like you say, I'm never going to talk like my mother, and then a dish drops and you go, whoa, you do something, oh my God, I sound like my mother. There's a reflexive path that's actually built into the structure of your brain. And since our brains are malleable, we can actually change that structure through exercise, meditation, gratitude, a lot of self-care. So I'm going to show this short video, a very famous psych experiment called the still-faced experiment. I bring this back into my lectures now because of the cell phone and parents looking down and parents distracted and parents, texting and the kids saying, look at me, and they're behind the camera filming them is different than actually look at me. So this is a famous experiment that was redone recently about how quickly kids become alarmed when I'll let you watch, you'll see.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 34 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In this still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl. Very hard to watch. It's very hard to watch because, just in that brief separation of no expression, no feeling, no connection, the baby gets completely dysregulated, right? And not a whole lot of words, just the expression change. So I always think about kids when their parents like, 1 second, we have to be very mindful of how we bring those devices in our lives. So speaking of brain development, this is a normal brain on the left of a normal kid who's been loved. I said the brain grows on love. And that's a baby on the right, a 3-year-old in an orphanage with neglect. So the brain literally shrinks without these neural pathways of love and connection and safety. So again, we are brain sculptors. Discipline means to teach. It doesn't mean to shame, to punish, to hit. It doesn't, to punish actually means to suffer from a crime, So you want to teach. Discipline, the actual root of the word disciple means to teach. So I always go through my ABCs of discipline is that we're on the same team. We're raising a great kid. You're on, Team Phillips, Team Brown, Team Jones. You're on the same side. You are trying to raise them. Parents actually come at kids, and you kind of want to come alongside kids and get down to their level and be with them. We also want to take the bark and bite. B is for take the bark and bite out of your discipline. So classic example, stop screaming. Stop it, stop screaming. It's like, okay, we have to be the lesson before we teach the lesson. And in a pandemic with parents doing, having their house be an office, a school, a kitchen, everything else, tensions are high. And so we have to make sure we do a lot of self-care in this time so that we can have a delivery. If you feel like you're going to say, stop screaming, that you literally give yourself a parental timeout. I always say it's not the kids who need a timeout, it's the parents. To put your oxygen mask on, to go in your closet, shut the door and call a friend, phone a friend, go for a whatever, 5-second veg out on the internet, something before you come back to your kid because you want to be that calm leader at the helm. And then calm and consistent follow through. I just got a kick when my kids were young. If you do this one more time, if you do this one more time, we're leaving the party. There was a kid once at my house and we were making like taffy apples and the kid was taking a fork, in preschool and stabbing the other kid. And the mom's like, if you do this one more time, we're going to go. And I was like, leave, please. The one more time has come up 50 times. Let's go. We will cheer for you if you have a calm and consistent follow through. Don't make a threat you can't keep. Like if you're going to Europe, you're going to lose your iPad. Do not make that threat if you can't follow through. Find something you actually can follow through so that they find you trustworthy. D is one of the biggest ones. Discipline yourself before you discipline your child. That means, how do I want to choose my words? You want to raise your words, not your voice. How can I reach them? How can I explain myself? And empathize with kids' feelings, uses feelings. So Dan Siegel says, name it to tame it. His research at UCLA on kids, their brains wire up when you say, wow, you're feeling so angry, or you're feeling so frustrated, and then not a whole lot else, right? Not a lot of talking, not a lot of negotiating, not a lot of just, naming the feeling. I'm with you. I see you. I understand you. Wouldn't we all love that, right? From our spouses. If you had a hard day and, you're working in a pandemic and you tell your husband how your work meeting went terribly and he's like, we should have gone on earlier and you should have done this and you should have done that, or I'm taking away your shoes, or think of the crazy crap we do to our kids. You'd be like, you're taking away how's that going to help? Or you're yelling at me. Everybody wants a poor baby. Oh, that's so hard. Just empathy. Empathy literally creates neural pathways between right and left brain and in the frontal cortex, your thinking brain. So this is brain anatomy 101. This is your amygdala, your primitive brain, your guard dog, danger, danger, there's a bear. That formed first. Here's your brainstem, your primitive brain, this part formed first. Then we have this part called the higher cortical brain. And when kids are really upset, they literally flip their lids. No joke. Their lid is off. Their cortical thinking is gone. They cannot hear you. It's like, wah, 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 wah. Whatever you're saying is irrelevant anyway because they're in that primitive brain. So you want to give that empathic statement to bring them back. So I say you want to hold the feeling and you want to hold the line. You want to set limits with love. I know you want to eat ice cream before dinner. And we don't have ice cream before dinner. We're going to have it after dinner. So you want to hold the feeling, you want to validate. I get it. I wish we could, but right. So, oh, this is an old one. Sorry, I'm on an old slideshow. Oh, so raise yourself, raise your child. We have to be the mentor. So a guy flew in after I wrote Permission to Parent from Europe. On your mark, get set, go. My kid is lying. On your mark, get set, go. Fix my kid. I was like, wow, the pressure. Okay, you know, I said, I have one question for you, and he said, this isn't about me. I was like, oh, but it is. It really is. I said, do you lie? And he's like, wait, I'm not spending my money to talk about me. I'm like, oh, it's always about us because we have to put the mirror back on ourselves. He's like, well, little white lies like my kids, you know, this age so that we get the cheaper menu, or I've got a headache, I can't go to the party, or kids have bionic ears. They hear everything. If you live by example, you don't even have to do that much parenting when it comes to certain departments. Parents crack me up. They say, don't yell, but they yell. They say, have patience, but they lose theirs. They say, don't lie, and they lie. Kids just copy their parents. It's not the kids who have to change. It's the parents. Seems like Captain Obvious to me. A high school student in Compton I interviewed. I was like, oh, cool word. It is kind of Captain Obvious. So is this your mom? Keep oming. So we have all been here. We have all been there. We're lying if we say we haven't. Dragon mom, dragon dad, losing our cool, right? This was inspired by somebody I saw long decades ago in another town who said, sometimes my mom was a mom. Sometimes she was a monster. I guess I was raised by a momster. And I remember thinking, none of us want to go down as momsters, right? Or dadsters. We want to take a beat, collect ourselves. Again, super tall order in a pandemic, super tall order, more self-care for the parents, more daily exercise, meditation, going out with a friend for a walk, getting a coffee, whatever is your thing, more of it so that you can parent. I'm going to be skipping slides so that we have time for the questions. This is watch what you're mentoring. Are you kidding me? What the hell? Are you kidding me? What the hell? If you're not modeling what you're teaching something different. So being an emotional grown-up means setting aside your ego to be in service to your child. So back in the days when my kids were in preschool, I was watching them play. I was on a park bench in the back of a preschool, and I was sitting next to this amazing stay-at-home dad with 3 children, a remarkable dad. And all of a sudden, his daughter with these big brown eyes and pigtails comes up, and she's like, Dad, you gotta help me. You know, Allie said that she's not gonna be friends with me anymore. And he's like, oh, sweetheart, that's so awful. Did what I said, empathize with the feeling, empathize with the feeling. Then he gives her a big hug, doesn't say much, just gives her a big hug. And then the third thing he did blew me out of the water. He literally, as she's doing that kind of ugly cry, you want to sweep her up and kiss her, he says, how are you going to solve the problem, sweetheart? What are you going to do? He put the resilience ball back in her court, and she's like, I know, I could play with a girl with big brown eyes and pigtails. And he's like, oh, you mean you, sweetheart? And she's like, yeah. And he said, great idea. And off she goes. And I'm literally like, okay, that's the best parenting I've ever seen. So I look at him and said, I don't know if you know, but I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a parenting coach. And that's the best parenting I've ever seen. He goes, that little girl's a bitch, and her mother's a bitch. And he starts going off about, and the entitled piece of shit. I was like, okay, slow down, hold, please, But it was even more PhD parenting because he's doing what I'm asking you guys to do. Set aside your stuff to be in service to your kid. He didn't dump his stuff on his daughter. Oh, that girl's a jerk, don't play with her. He left it really pure. And, it's super important. So I used to be a teacher before I went to medical school, and I taught kindergarten. And I was crazy about this little kid, Sam. I'm at my desk and I look up and it's reading time, and he's literally standing on a book. So what do you do as a parent when you see your kids stand on a book? Your internal monologue. Where did I go wrong? I've screwed up. That entitled little brat. That's your inner mommy, daddy monologue. There's a difference between the inner monologue, what you think and what you say, right? As a parent and as a teacher. By the way, teachers of the year, that was their number one thing. Filter what you say, what you think when it comes out to a child and what you say. So this little sweet guy standing on a book, and what I wanted to say is we don't stand on books. But I thought, let me do what I say, which is connect before you correct. Connect before you correct. So I say, Sam, and I got really low and looked in his eyes. Sam, honey, why are you standing on Goodnight Moon? And he said, I want to go in. I was slayed. I was like, wow, I got access to this little boy's world, and I would have missed all of it had I jumped in and been correcting him. So now that I've made you feel guilty for lying and yelling and all that, we are human, and there is a high degree of human error. And in fact, there's a famous guy named Donald Winnicott, who's a pediatrician and a psychiatrist, and he coined the term you might have heard, the good enough mother, the good enough parent. We're not supposed to be perfect, because when we have ruptures and when we don't see our kids or meet their needs, we get to circle back and repair it. And we get to say things like, can I have a daddy do-over, right? This is what I would do next time. This is what I would do. You know, my message was right, my volume was wrong. So in the mommy do-over, I got a call from a woman who said, oh, I had the ultimate mommy do-over. My kid was going to her first high school dance and she was super nervous. And she said, you know, my daughter in the backseat of the car is like, Mom, how should I be at the dance? And the mom said, be nice, but not too nice. And don't forget to wear the lip gloss. And she's like, literally, as I'm saying this stuff, I'm vomiting out all the crap my mother ever said to me. And I literally pulled the car aside, raised my hand and said, sweetheart, can I have a mommy do-over? Ask me that question again. And she said, Mom, how should I be at the dance? And she said, be yourself, because you're so magnificent, and that is just enough. So that kind of repair, again, on a neuropsych level, so brain studies show if you repair, the scar on your brain does not form. So if you scream and yell at a kid or call them a name or lazy or selfish, whatever, you're not your highest parent, and you go back, I'm so sorry. Let me begin again, right? The neural pathway doesn't get formed in a bad way, it goes the other way. So really powerful about repair. And as anyone who's doing parenting, because kids will hold a freaking mirror to your face, my children are the most enriching personal development seminar I have ever taken. Beyonce said, my children have introduced me to myself, which I think is such a great thing. There are parts of ourselves that get buried, and we get this second opportunity. They hand us our stuff on a silver platter to get to rework our own story so that we can help them with theirs. These guys who fear becoming fathers don't understand that fathering is not something perfect men do, but something that perfects the man. The end product of child raising is not the child, but the parent. So I wrote a whole chapter about trash the trash talk. So when I grew up, like, all parents would say, you're naughty, you're bad. When I hear that, like I was in the line before the pandemic at the pier watching kids, and it's like, you're bad, you're naughty. I was like, oh, can't we find different language, right? Bad boy, you're selfish, you're lazy. You know, you're lazy versus, you know, I'd love you to help clean up. Very different message, and it gets internalized in a very different way. She's a drama queen. I had a patient who was postpartum, had a 3-day-old baby, was holding the baby in my arms in another state, and she said, wow, she is such a diva. And I said, who are we referring to? That little bundle in your arms who's 3 days old? So we project our story unknowingly on our kids, right? She's a drama queen, whatever. How dare you, shame on you, all of these names. We really want to be conscious of language and tone. Whoever said sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me was completely wrong. We all skinned our knees as kids. Those wounds are long forgotten. Angry outbursts, insults we remember forever. Words wound in powerful ways. I'm just gonna, oh, I didn't tell you the Disneyland story. Sorry, so this quote isn't gonna make as much. I'm gonna skip back to everyone's story that they remember most in my lecture is the Disneyland story. So when I was doing my book, everyone said, you have to interview this family. They have the most incredible kids. They're kind, they're compassionate. They're just the whole package. And so I cold call this mother. I come over, and the kids are now young adults. And I say, gosh, you seem so great. Did your parents ever discipline you? And I interviewed these two twins, boy and a girl, and the daughter said, "Oh my gosh, I got to tell you the Disneyland story. My brother and I were fighting in the car. I gave him a punch. My mom said, you know, we got 3 warnings, and if we get to Disneyland and we get to 3, we're going home." They're like, "Yeah, right." And the brother gives a little kick, you know, to make it evil. And the mom turns like, "Wow, we're at 2." They get to the gates of Disneyland. They can see the Magic Kingdom. And, you know, they decide, somebody pinch one of them to the other one. And the mom turns around and says, "I'm so terribly sorry. We have to go home." And the father's like, "What the hell are you talking about? I bought the tickets. I took the day off from work." They had, you know, she's like, "Trust me." And she turned around and they went home. And when this 26-year-old girl was telling me, this young woman was telling me this story, she was crying. And, you know, we psychiatrists, we follow the tears. You cry on the truth. You're feeling your soul. You're connected to your truth when you have those tears. So I said, "Sweetheart, why are you crying now all these years later?" And she said, "My mom gave me the message with such love." I was floored. She didn't shame me. She didn't say, you know, I had ruined her day. She said, "I feel so badly for you. I know how much you were looking forward to this." So then, of course, I got to interview the twin brother. I interview him and I say the same question. "You seem so great. Have you ever, you know, has your mom ever disciplined you?" And he goes on to tell me the exact same Disneyland story, such are twins, right? The identical Disneyland story. And then at the end of it, I said, "What did she do after that?" He goes, "After that, she had total cred." "What do you mean?" "There was her word was law. She did what she said in a calm way, and we knew what she meant, what she said." So then I went back and I interviewed that mother, and she said, "Our children are our guests for 18 years. We have to treat our guests with the utmost respect." And when you're at my stage and your kids are married and all that, you realize that it's a short window of real joy. So think of your child's brain like a computer. You don't want to input data that's not easily deleted. Stephen Sondheim said, "Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. What do you leave to your child when you're dead? Only whatever you put in your head." Language is one of the most powerful things I struggle with in my own psychotherapy practice, where I've had 60 and 70-year-olds say, "Oh, my mom said I had fat feet, and she's been dead for 30 years, and I still think about that when I wear sandals." You know, so this stuff gets internalized in a way that we want to be thoughtful about. My mom's voice is ingrained in me. I always can hear it. Thank goodness she had such a loving voice. So much of mental health comes to how we talk to ourselves. So this is a depressed brain, which is pressing in. Oops, sorry. Remove that. And a not depressed brain looks more like a Christmas tree. It lights up. So our thoughts are literally, you know, I always say exercise is medicine, food is medicine, and your thoughts are medicine. So when kids get really self-critical, "Hey, don't talk about someone I love like that. I'm so stupid. I did so badly. Hey, hold on a minute," and make them reframe it in a way that's kinder and gentler. So you want to be teaching that. I'm just going to skip in the interest of time. This last probably 15 years of parenting is a lot about this ego-driven product development. Professional people became professional parents, and they brought the same expectations to parenting. So my mentor said, "Today's parents want a perfect child. You can have Prada boots, but today's parents want a Prada kid." So much of childhood is trial and error and fumbling and mistakes, getting up, trying again, doing it differently, bouncing back, being resilient. But when we tell our kids we have to be perfect and get straight A's and not, they have a very narrow window of what the lane looks like. And childhood is a really squiggly line. Most people's path to where they are now was a very squiggly line, not a straight path. So we have to watch out for this helicoptery, you know, I'm going to give him his math facts while he plays the tuba and jumps over the hurdle. Like, hopefully, actually in this pandemic, the blessings in the pandemic are the 2 biggest things I was absolutely worried about in parenting, which was this kind of helicoptering, racing around, overscheduling, activity to activity without a lot of downtime and free play. Is kind of, the helicopter has landed. It may be a crash landing, but it's landing. I really think when I went to Google, top t-shirts sold, "This way to awesome," "Wait is over, I'm here," "Don't make me unfriend you," "Eat my dust." I'm like, give me a break. This is the age of narcissism. We've told our kids, you're so special, you're so special. That's kind of been a bust, right? Because there's a ton of narcissism. I teach at UCLA. I'm a professor there. I taught for 15 to 20 years medical residents, so they were already done with medical school. This last couple of years, I've gone back to the medical students because there was a way that the residents weren't allowing themselves to make mistakes. So a woman, let's say, who needs to be hospitalized for postpartum psychosis, and I go to see the patient and the resident says, oh, this woman's doing great. And I'm thinking, really? She looks like she needs to be hospitalized to me. So I explain, well, I think this woman needs to be hospitalized. And the resident said to me, we'll have to agree to disagree, right? One day out of her medical school training, we'll have to agree to disagree. I was like, wow, I'm going back to the beginning. I'm going back to medical. I should go back to kindergarten. I should go back to teaching kindergarten. Because you want to teach humility, right? We're all humble learners. You want to teach kindness. You don't want to teach I'm so special. We've also had this compete, everybody gets a trophy as part of that narcissism. You're so special. You cannot handle normal disappointment. That's been a bust. And this whole, you're a genius, you're so special has also been a bust. So you guys actually are parenting in elementary school. Your timing is good. Your timing is really good because these trends are kind of busting up. This kind of trend, this was on Brentwood and San Vicente. This is not a fake sign. This is a real sign. Mommy and toddler, it's never too early to start preparing for college. I kid you not, right? The best preparation is play. There's a book called Last Child in the Woods, Being in Nature, Play, tons of research back up, free play, unstructured play. Most of your kids are not going to get a scholarship to Harvard based on their athletic prowess. So just be done with it now and let them play, let them enjoy the game. Tell you a funny story about let the game be yours. So one of my sons, when he was in high school, he was a tennis player, really looked up to this tennis player who was also a football player and a soccer player. The kid ended up going to Stanford and becoming a doctor. He was a really terrific kid to look up to. But on the way to the game, I told my husband that I would be able to spot this kid's parents. And my husband said, oh, I thought you were a psychiatrist, not like a psychic or a soothsayer. I'm like, no, I'll find them. So he's like, let's bet on it. I'm like, dinner. I was like, trip to Cabo. We were going back and forth in the car. And I got to the game, and it's a championship game, and I'm looking around, and I'm positive I spot the parents. Turns out they actually were the parents. And my husband said, how did you know? And I said, because they were not screaming from the sidelines. They weren't coaching. They weren't telling, jump it, no, move left, move right, wrong's right, twice it's right. All of that coaching. So the kid actually had his own internal locus of control. Like the game was his, and he was standing in his grace and his light. So it's interesting. Sometimes less is more when it comes to parenting. Proud of academics. So this study came out of Harvard that we were focusing so much on achievement that 10,000 middle school kids asked, what do you think is most important to your parents? They said that I achieve. The second is my own personal happiness. And the third is being a caring person. Wow, have we got that backwards, right? So we want to obviously put caring first, number one. So kind is cool. That's a much better looking t-shirt. Kind is cool. My religion is simple. My religion is kindness. We're doing a lot of teaching to resume virtues instead of eulogy virtues. Eulogy virtues last. I've seen so many kids in the last 20 years, they love soccer and the parents switched them to fencing so they could get into Harvard, and then they see me when they have a, psychiatric super bad depression or super bad anxiety episode as a young adult dropping out of Harvard or wherever they were. The formula is character, build character. Character counts, character lasts. And your unconditional love is by far the way you build a brain. So kindness starts at home. One of our jobs, our biggest job, is to be an emotion coach, as we talked about, to hear our kids, to get down to their level, to see them, to say, I get you. Dan Siegel's just written another good book, and he talks about the 4 S's, not the ones from the baby days from Harvey Cart, but the 4 S's are feeling soothed, feeling seen, feeling safe, and I'm actually forgetting the 4th one, but it's the idea of I get you, I know you. It's not like you're going to play soccer. I mean, how many times in my office have I seen fathers, I didn't get to play soccer, so he's getting to play soccer. And the kid's like, I don't like soccer. I like swimming. So part of being a good parent is seeing who your child is, and they might be incredibly different from you. And recognizing that, oh, they love cooking, or they love creative. They'd much rather paint than play football. And really honoring that is really an incredible thing to do. So how you talk to your partner, kids, again, bionic ears. And what's happened is there's this whole child focus taking away from the parents at the home. And there's new research saying that too much child, and not enough parents makes that hierarchy tilt even more toward the kid, right? So you want to take care of yourself, take care of your partner, be squarely at the home. You know, if you're a single parent, you're really a triple and quadruple parent. And you want to talk at the dinner table. We don't want to use language of gossiping, shaming. We want to model kindness. The best way to influence your kids is tell stories at the dinner table. Wow, I'm so impressed. I heard this kid did such and such. Kids love hearing stories about other kids, and they can hear it better than when it's directed at no lying. You know, you can tell about a really honest kid. They cheer up. When there's peace at home, I truly believe that if we are all well parented, our nervous system would be far more regulated, and there would be peace in the world. Number one thing with kids, and we'll get into the media, is positive media. They are infiltrated with so many negative media. Just make sure you watch that media diet. And in talking about character, I love this. This parent, well done, mom. Well done, dad.
And I know you guys get tired of me. It's little things.
Coach Peter Morales of the Coronado High School Thunderbirds in El Paso, Texas, makes no qualms about it. He has a favorite on this team.
Mitchell, I need you to help me out with my coaching tips, Mitchell.
Team manager Mitchell Marcus has a developmental disability.
1, 2, 3,
But he far surpasses everyone here when it comes to love of the game.
He's an amazing person. My basketball team loves being around.
Hey! Mitchell's mom, Amy, says he's always been that way.
Mitchell always had basketball. That was always what he wanted for his birthday.
And because basketball is that important to him, on the last game of the regular season, the coach told Mitchell to suit up.
What was it like to put on the uniform?
I was very happy. I bet you were. Just wearing a jersey was enough for Mitchell. But what he didn't know, what no one knew at the time, was that the coach planned to play him. At the end, no matter what the score.
I'll prepare the ball so I can. For his moment, yes. For his moment in time, yes.
So with a minute and a half left, Coronado leading, but only by 10, Coach Morales put in his manager.
And just Mitchell.
But here's where the fairy tale fell apart. Although his teammates did everything they could to get Mitchell a basket, each time they passed him the ball, he either missed the shot, or like on their last possession, booted it out of bounds, turning the ball over to the other team with just seconds left.
I wasn't able to score, but I was hoping that he was happy that he was just.
If ever imagined what happened?
I could not.
What happened next happened on the inbound. The guy with the ball there is a senior at Franklin High School, number 22, Jonathan Montañez.
I was raised to treat others how you want to be treated. He deserved his chance. He deserved his opportunity.
I think I'll cry about it for the rest of your life.
What Jonathan did was yell out Mitchell's name, then throw the ball right to him. Right there. One of the most memorable turnovers of all time. It wasn't the game-winning shot. When the buzzer sounded, Coronado had 15 more points than Franklin. But Jonathan's assist and Mitchell's basket did change the outcome decidedly. Play any game with this much sportsmanship. Both teams win. Steve Hartman.
Oh, I have to say, I love that video. That video gets me every time about that. That's who we're raising, kind people, character. How often do you see this anymore? How often do you see this versus this, right? So this constant Again, you guys are on the right side of this curve. You guys are parenting a really good time because we're realizing the toxicity of early social media on kids and too much electronic time, and all the data is in where it wasn't in a decade ago. And so now there's this whole selfie culture. There's a thing now in our DSM called selfie dysmorphia, which is so body dysmorphia where you're thinking you're fat, and kids are having selfie dysmorphia where they're changing their selfie pictures. So my advice in elementary school, delay. The longer you can keep your kids off of Instagram, Snapchat, the longer you can stay away from that, the easier. The studies show less ADHD, longer attention spans, kids who read books for hours at a time, who haven't, there are tons of experiments on this. You could look it up. The research has skyrocketed with the importance of keeping your kids, to kind of balance it in your house so that we don't have this curve. This is our evolution. We've evolved into screens. We're breastfeeding our kids on devices. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Stop texting and changing me. I thought that was interesting. It's out of stock. This is a true device, an iPod. I don't know if you've missed that new number, but God forbid you should poop on your own. You have to have an electronic device to poop. Crazy people use electronic devices as parents, right? So your kid's fussy and you stick something in their face. It's fine occasionally. We've all done it, right? But in reality, you're missing that opportunity, parents. So once I watched a parent at a kindergarten trying to separate, and the kid was all fussy, so she gave him something to play with. So none of those neural pathways are getting formed because he's not doing the work to form them. He's just distracting himself. So, try not to use them as pacifiers. Too much too soon doesn't prepare kids. People are like, they're in an electronic world. They'll catch up like that. But, forming those pathways, being outside. And again, positive mentorship. When I grew up, again, I'm dating myself. Fathers Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, Mr. Rogers. These were really good parenting shows, right? We had some nice leaders at the helm today. We've got this, Housewives. So you want to really limit, what they're seeing video game wise. Again, I'm going to go through for sake of time. So in wrapping up, so we have time for questions. Parenting is a pyramid. At the very bottom, you're very busy when you have kids in early elementary school, right? You're the manners police. This is not your napkin, right? This is your hand. This is not your napkin. Close your mouth. Sit down. Clear your plate. You're driving them. You're the chauffeur. You're the doctor. You're the nurse when they get hurt. You're bandaging them up. You are so busy at this level of the pyramid. And then you throw in a pandemic, and again, I'm going to keep saying this, put on your own oxygen mask. Put on your own oxygen mask. Incredible studies, recent ones that I was reading about gratitude. Even just waking up before you get out of bed, 5 things you're grateful for. 5 things you're grateful for literally increases serotonin, the hormone, neurochemical in Prozac, norepinephrine, dopamine. It also increases oxytocin, that bonding hormone you have when you have a baby. So really taking care of yourself so you can manage all of this down here in a pandemic. And then your second role, beyond keeping them safe, fed, cared for, is the higher frequency, is really knowing your job is to be an emotion coach. And why do people remember childhood? Again, it's literally mapped in your brain, right? And so we want to focus on being an emotion coach. Kids are like a raw M&M. They don't have the cover. They drop an ice cream cone, right? You want, you're upset, you dropped your ice cream, as opposed to, let me buy you 5 more ice creams. Letting them sit in their feelings, sitting in their feelings with an empathic statement and a lot of quiet behind it. You're a role model. So you want to really, when you live by example and give back and go help someone who's an older person, bring them groceries or volunteer somewhere, kids, they really end up taking that in. It really, again, more studies roll out that when you volunteer, when you help, when you model kindness, you raise kind kids. You're the moral compass. And at the very top, the very, very top, you're the soul guide. In the Sikh religion, believe that the child chooses the parent because the child has something to learn. So it's when you're up here looking down, you say, wow, why did my kid pick me? What do I have to learn from them? What do they have to learn from me? And a lot of times there's mutual growth that's quite exciting. If you want to know the truth about parents, they scare me. They're fearless and they're fearless and overcommitted, especially when it comes to kids. There's something frightening about their unconditional love. It shows a foolish fortitude. A mother's heart is lethal, bigger than anything more powerful than the military owns. You know, you look back and I have, young adults weeping about, no one asked me to prom and my dad showed up with a bouquet of flowers and we ordered Chinese food, and they're weeping about the gratitude of how great that felt for them. So these little things we do for our kids, they go very far. And obviously I must have clicked on a slide that had from Mother's Day. So I'm just going to show it to you because it's here. And moms, so I'll have to do one for dads the next time, but moms in a pandemic, this one's for you.
And I want to thank my mother. I want to thank my mother.
I'd like to thank my mother.
Thank my mom. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mama. Mama, esto es para ti. My mother, I love you. So I'd like to thank my mom.
Especially my mom. My mom.
My mom. My mom.
My mother.
My mother. Your madre.
My mother, who did craft services for the film.
Who's the most brave, beautiful woman I've ever known.
The greatest woman on the planet is here tonight. That's my mother, Ruth.
My mother, and Matt's mother, the most beautiful woman here.
My mother, Blythe Tanner, who I love more than anything.
My mother taught me to write.
Taught me that all of my finger paintings were Picasso's. Thanks to my mom for always encouraging us to try to make art.
From the beginning. Who made a life for me where I get to be a part of nights like this.
I don't care what they say about bringing you to award shows. I will always bring you to award shows because I'm proud of you and I love you.
You've sacrificed so much for me to be able to live here and make my dreams come true. And there are no words to describe how much I love you. I thank my mom, who's giving me the strength to fight every single day to be who I want to be and to give me the courage to dream that this dream might be happening and possible for me. I love you, Mom, so much.
So, Mom, this one's for you. Sagapo Poli. With this tonight, I honor you. And the moral of the story is, listen to your mother.
So powerful to have time now to spend time with your family, to be with your kids in a different way. Again, those memories outside, camping, nature. We kind of had an old-fashioned summer. We went back to the basics. There wasn't a lot of running around and hopping, and there was a lot of, being in the backyard, going for walks. When I did my book, I said, what's the number one thing to grandparents and people that raised older kids? What would you do again? What was your woulda, shoulda, coulda? And they said, worry less, enjoy more. Worry less, enjoy more. And I didn't get to mention the other thing we're parenting through is a lot of uncertainty. And kids who are anxious want certainty. They want to know what's going to happen. When am I going back to school? And just sitting with, we don't know, teaches flexibility and pivoting and parenting through disappointment and not running around racing from activity to activity. And I'm so busy, I don't have time. All of those stories all of those narratives have kind of busted up a little. And so we do have this unprecedented time to be with our kids again. And I always end with this slide that a little boy, when I was going through the kindergarten class, I saw this boy's drawing and I loved it so much. And I said, oh my gosh, I love your drawing. Is this your baby sister? And he said, oh, I don't have a baby sister. That's my mom. And I was like, oh, that's your mom. Really? Wow. And he's like, see, we're I was thinking, wow, you feel central. You feel special, grandiose, whatever. Look at the scale of the son versus the mom. But he said, no, it's that we're so connected, right? Because my mom looks at me with hearts in her eyes, and that's why I've grown so big. So that's really the gist of the whole thing. Kids live to see that sparkle in your eyes. They live to see that they mean something to you, that you see them. And so that would be the message. Go home and look at all those little guys with hearts in their eyes. And honestly, I envy all of you. I know it sounds crazy in a pandemic, but when you're at my age and my stage, you just look back on this time, and elementary is kind of a magical window with kids. It's a great window. So thank you, Elisa, for inviting me, and thank you for having me at Canyon. I'm happy to open it up to questions. You told me that, how do I do this? I say stop share. No. Yes, stop share. Yes.
Right at the top.
Share. There we go.
And then can you, Robin, can you see everybody? Well, most people have their cameras off right now, but can you see everyone's names on your screen?
Yes, I can see names. Sure, I can see names. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And anyone has time for a question, or if I'm happy to answer them. I'm also happy to let you go have a nice cup of coffee before round 2 of parenting, right? Round 2 of parenting. But it's really a magical time, honestly. If I could tilt back my own clock, I would love to redo elementary school. Kids want to be with their parents. You haven't hit the teenage years yet. Drop me off at the corner, Mom. I don't want anyone to see you. Right? That whole thing that comes where they're doing that dance of separation, individuation. They want to be with you, and they want to, and you get to create that family. Any questions? If not, no problem.
I don't see any hands up or anyone calling out.
I would just say, it's Amanda here, that, you were very reassuring about the sort of neuroplasticity and how we can repair and change pathways. But I know that I've been hearing from a lot of my friends as parents right now in the pandemic, like we're so worried about the damage it's doing to them, the screens, this year. If it's a year of their lives lost, like what's it going to look like? And maybe you could speak to that, reassure us a little bit.
Glad you asked that question. That is the perfect question. Even the way you framed it, a year lost. That's very powerful language, right? Versus we're having a different year, right? This is an unusual year. This is a year where we're having to pivot. So there's a very different thing between having damage, mental illness damage done by a pandemic, and parenting through disappointment. So having talked to, I'm on a weekly UCLA call with 20 other psychiatrists. Those need to be separated out, because damning and damaging and all that, they're home with their parents in elementary school. That's kind of a lottery. Like from my kids, it's like kids and dogs. When we look at the research coming out of UCLA, kids and dogs are very happy in a pandemic because they don't have to separate from you, right? Of course, some kids want to be with their friends, and you can work that out. But to separate out that concept of damage. So yeah, screens are a bummer that you're staring at a screen, but it's different than the research on, constant video games. That research, is in. This is about parenting through disappointment. This is rough. This is an opportunity that you kind of live for as a parent, because you get to help them work through big feelings. And it's tough, but I think we have to watch our narrative, like damaging, a life lost. Did you hear how big that got? Right? And we want to bring it got really big. I was like, wow, a life, we lost a year? Really? It's gone? Holy crap. So that kind of language leads to a little bit of extreme thinking, black or white. School is good, this is bad, right? And that fuels anxiety in children. So that kind of black and white thinking, and anxiety and uncertainty fuels anxiety. So we're getting to parent anxious kids during this time. We don't know. When are you getting back to school? No idea. There's so many things in life, no idea, right? You send your kid off to college, did I pick the right school? I don't know, right? Did I order the right thing on the menu? I don't know. That letting your kid know that this is part of life, and teaching resiliency and pivoting, and yeah, you really want to be on that soccer team, and we're going to make do with playing with 3 friends at the park, kicking the ball in soccer. The funniest thing is kids are less distressed than their parents. So the new data out of UCLA is the parents are more concerned that the kids, they're wearing, oh my God, I can't send my kid in a mask. The kid's like, they just wear a mask, right? It's no big deal to them. So their kids vibe off your energy. They're energy vibers. That's why I'm saying put your own oxygen mask on. take care of yourself so you have enough reserve to parent them and say, yeah, it's kind of an interesting, kind of a bonus year in a way. I get to be with you more. That there's a way to hold both. It's really disappointing that we can't be with our friends at school. I so get that. And we're getting to do a lot more cooking at home. It's holding both. We call that in the world of dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a out branch of CBT therapy, we call that a dialectic. You hold both feelings. Parents often hold one feeling, bad or good. Oh, don't be unhappy for yourself that you lost the race. Be happy for your friend. Well, in reality, an integrated brain holds both. I'm so disappointed I lost the race, and I'm so happy for my friend Sally that she won. That ability, think how evolved that is. I mean, we don't let ourselves feel that a lot of times, right? I messed up, I did good, I did bad. That kind of, we call that black and white thinking, catastrophic thinking, a lost year. That's actually classic example of catastrophic thinking, a lost year versus we're safe, we're blessed, we live in California, the weather is, going to keep us able to be outside all year long. We're not living in an apartment in New York City. It's holding both, holding the disappointment and holding the other piece. And that's integration. One of those slides I didn't get to talk about, but it's like, I'm sorry, Sam, I could be trashing you, but it's like you're naughty or nice, right? Really? That's my choice? That's the choice. So you want to hold both for an integrated brain. And it's a thing most parents don't think about. That wasn't nice. Give that toy back. Take a beat to think about holding both feelings. So I'm so glad you asked that because I get a call a day, literally, Amanda, a call a day on that question about damage. And the data is not at all suggesting that's what's going on.
Good to hear.
Disappointment is different than damage. They're very, very different. And again, looking back when you're walking your kid down the aisle, you're going to think, oh my God, I got an extra year in first grade. We made forts. We made a lot of brownies. We played in the backyard. We kicked a lot of soccer balls, threw a lot of baseballs, watched the Dodgers, whatever you're doing as a family. You're going to look back and be, you're going to be able to pull both the fear and the disappointment and the sadness and also some grace. There's so much that I've seen that I've never seen in West LA. I saw a guy over in the Palisades where the water is, whatever that area is called, a guy sitting with his preschool kid having lunch on a bench. And I was like, that's the cutest thing. So I kind of stopped to look at him. He's like, I've never had lunch with my kid. It's like the first week lunch I've ever had with my kid. I've seen teenagers up in the hikes up Kenter, like picking wildflowers. I'm like, when do you ever see? And kids, when they do have play dates, they're not running down to play video games. They're like, oh, I'm sick of the screen. Let's go outside. So there's some hidden blessings here in all of it. And then being able to parent in ways we couldn't because we're in the room. We're in the room. We're not farming it out. They're not at school all day, then they're not at activities all afternoon. And so when that kind of emotional stuff comes up, we have an opportunity to lean in a little. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, Amanda, but that was the best question you could have.
We need to hear it. We need to hear it. So.
Yeah, separate out disappointment from damage. Completely different things in terms of your brain. Completely. Any other questions?
I do. Sabrina here. I have a question. Concerning this whole pandemic, and now that we're all home, which is great, but on the other hand, in my case, my experience is that my kids, we never had video games. Mm-hmm. And now we do, because it's the way that they connect with friends, but I hate the video games. I think they're a nightmare, but because they don't see the friends, they don't see anybody, literally, is a way to connect. And when do you say is enough? Because it's a fight for me with them. Well, but such and such just got in, and such, and he didn't play yesterday, and blah, blah, and the list goes on and on and on. They have an excuse for every time that they wanted to be on the games. And it's a struggle to get them off.
First of all, I applaud you for keeping them at bay up until now. And again, let's just be a little easy on ourselves. It is a pandemic. We're not going to do things perfect. We're not supposed to. House is going to get messier, whatever. Kids are going to play more video games, because you're right. That is a way to connect socially, virtually. That is a way to connect. You're absolutely right. And also, finding those people who are sheltering in pods with you to go outside to get, there's a Last Child in the Woods is a great book about nature. But in terms of the video games, what's very helpful is a very firm rule about when they stop and start. So, on the weekend, on a Saturday, we're going to go outside, we're going to go for a hike, we're going to go for a walk, play outside, do whatever. At 3 o'clock, from 3 to 5, you can play video games, and keep it kind of the same. That's their time. And all of those stories, trust me, those stories are going to change. Like everyone else gets to stay late at the party. You just wait. That story is like, everyone else is buying that prom dress. The stories that you got to get really comfortable with. I so get that those parents are doing that. Our house, our rules, right? Very comfortable with whatever you decide that is. On the weekends, is it 2 hours? Is it 1 hour during the weekday? Whatever it is, consistency. And it's really okay in this pandemic to, we have to be a little bit flexible with our normal stuff, because again, this is not normal time. So thank you for that question, but it doesn't really work when you say kids can play 2 hours and then just leave it up to them where the 2 hours are, because, I didn't only play 30 minutes here, and just keep it a discrete block of time. And, obviously after homework or on a weekend, after they've been out playing all day, just find what you're okay with. And that story of what the neighbors and the friends are getting to do, you're just going to have to say, I'm okay with that. The title of my book, Permission to Parent, if you go to Europe, it's called Hate Me Now, Thank Me Later. So when I went to a conference at Harvard Westlake, there was like 500 common sense media people from Stanford, and a Harvard Westlake freshman got up and started crying, thanking her mother for not letting her have social media. So there's the thank you, right? So hold to your values, but be a little bit flexible during a pandemic. Again, it's that holding both, but never that, my friend's story. Trust me, you're gonna hear that one a long time ahead of you. My kids, and they get this much in college to spend. Yeah, I only get enough for pizza. So get really comfortable with the hate me now, thank me later, right? I'm good, right? One of the stories in my book was a child arguing over wanting a fancy bathing suit right at the end of summer, and it was like $200. And the mom said, he said, you can afford it. And the mom said, but I don't value it. Shoot me one day for teaching me values, right? So you have to get comfortable with who you are as the Kahn family, Sabrina Kahn. We're okay. This is what we do in our house. And yes, absolutely, I want you to connect with your friends, and I want you to have fun. And at the same time, we have limits. So again, that dialectic.
Yeah. Thank you. That helps.
Welcome. Cut yourself a little slack. It's a pandemic.
I know. I was so good that I had no video games until now. I was like,
I'm impressed you made it so far. So that's great. And once the world, starts to tilt back on its axis, you can kind of tweak it back. But there is a lot of socialness that kids, and choose the sports games or the dance games or whatever, as opposed to the violent games. There's also tons of research on that too.
Yeah. Thank you.
So welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Robin. I think this is so timely considering the amount of time we are spending with our kids. So it's great to hear from you, and I'm going to let all your words of wisdom kind of permeate and soak in. But I really appreciate you spending the afternoon with us and being here for our first parent ed session.
Thank you for having me. And just thank you for having me. And those little people, you're getting to hang out there. They say the kids this age and dogs are very happy. Teenagers stuck with their parents, a whole high school stuck with their parents, but kids at this age, thrilled.
So you're saying that might be more catastrophic, but not elementary.
You know what? Honestly, there's a book when you do have teenagers. If some of you came in school have teenagers, there's a book that I love called Hold On to Your Kids. And it's really all about, kids, they push you away, but they really want you around. It's, that dance. And so even teenagers are, you know, happy to come down and be able to chat with you. So I think it works all the way through. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.